it's Rebecca Mickey here and welcome to the 10-Minute Masterclass. I am a children's sleep consultant and author, and I work with families of children under 6 years old. In this masterclass, I'm going to be talking to you all about transitioning your child out of the swaddle, looking at when we need to do this and making this as easy as possible. Now, it is going to get at some point, we need to get your child out of the swaddle, and though they may sleep fairly well in it, is a transition that needs to happen, and we need to start this transition when your child is beginning to roll from their back to their front when they are not swaddled. This is when we want to start making this transition. Now, there is no set age that this is going to happen. Your child is going to do this when they're going to do this. Maybe before 3 months. It may be a little bit nearer to 6 months. So looking at when your child is beginning to roll from their back to their front when they're not swaddled, this is the time that you want to start making this transition. It depends as to how your child has been swaddled as to how and when you're going to make this change. So if your child has been swaddled with their arms down by their sides, it's going to take you a little bit longer to get them out of the swaddle. So we really want to start as soon as you start seeing your child beginning to roll. And the way that we can just begin to make this transition is by not just unraveling them from the swaddle and just putting them down awake or getting them to sleep and laying them down when they're unswaddled. That is not necessarily going to work. They're used to having very limited movement, and now suddenly they have full range of movement. They are not going to be sleeping well. They're going to struggle to fall asleep, and they are going to wake up many, many, many more times. So easing them into this transition is much easier to do. What I suggest you do, if your child has had their arms by their sides night after night, what I suggest that you do is to give them a little bit more room. So making that swaddle just a little bit looser. Now, we don't want it to be that it's very easy for your child to get out of, because they're going to be waking up much more often. And then we've got a lot of loose fabric in the bed, which isn't safe for your child. So just a little bit. So you're giving them just a little bit more range of movement. And every single night you will want to make that safely a little bit looser, so they're getting that little bit more range of movement. And then at some point we have got to get those arms out. I suggest that you start with one arm first. So you will continue to swaddle one arm, swaddle them as normal, but rather than swaddling the second arm, you'll just swaddle them around the chest and you will have one arm out. Keep it this way for about 3 nights. Now, your child may have a little bit of a trickier time with this. They have that range with one arm, full range of movement with one arm. You may actually find that as they get nearer to the morning time, anything after 4 a.m., that they're just awake. And this is really, really normal. We don't get into a deep sleep after 4 a.m. We're in a much lighter sleep as we're getting ready to start the day. So your child may need more help after 4 a.m. As with anything with sleep, it is never ever an all or nothing. Your child can have their arm out of the swaddle for the entire night until we get to that 4 a.m. point. And when things are getting tricky, you can always just re-swaddle them with their arm back in. It means that they're going to be getting a little bit more sleep, but we've had a big chunk of the night where they have not been swaddled both arms in. So it's all good. I would do the same for 3 or 4 nights. And then, remember, you know your child better than anybody. You know their temperament. You can either swap the arm, so putting the arm that was out back in and having the other arm out, or you can now have the 2 arms out. As I say, you know your child better than anybody and what may work for them. So you just go with what you're comfortable with and what your instinct is telling you. And so you would continue to swaddle around the chest if you are having both arms out, because they're still getting that real snug feeling. And then you can, at 4 a.m., you can then put the new arm out, so that if they had 2 arms out, you would then just put 1 arm in after 4 a.m. and you still keep 1 arm out. So again, it's more of a gradual transition. Gradual transitions work for so many more children so much easier than just ripping that band-aid off. Ripping that band-aid off does work for a lot of children, but they have to be really kind of laid back and easygoing for that to be the case. Children are a bit more intense and a bit more spirited. ripping that band-aid off can just be completely overwhelming for them and then for you. So I like to go nice and slow. Slow and steady wins the race. Certainly does. And so then you've really made this transition much slower. So that's if your child has been with their arms down at their sides and you're making that transition. There are some other swaddles that you can get, which actually I found through working with families that they are easier to make the transition out of. And so ones that we want to look at are the Love to Dream Swaddle Up. It's your child is sleeping up like this with their arms up like this in a much more natural position. The Swaddle Up, it has a 50-50 where they have a zippered little wing on, and so you can easily just get one arm out, do exactly the same thing, and then after 3 or 4 nights, then have the other arm out. Again, if you're struggling after 4 a.m., you can easily just put that arm back in. Super easy to do. The Wombi also make a swaddle, which has the opportunity to have one arm out and then both arms out. Again, that's a little bit easier because your child is in a more natural position that way. Other swaddles that I like that can make that a little bit easier are the Ergo Baby. They have sort of a hands to chest. Again, it can be really hard to transition a child if they have had their arms pinned down their sides, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. So when your child is beginning to roll from back to front when they are not swaddled, this is the time to start making that transition. Make sure you get the download. You'll find the timeline on there, just so that's a little bit easier for you to figure out exactly when and where you need to be making this transition and what you need to be doing on what night. Make sure you get the download. If you have any questions at all about this or any sleep issues, you can always just put those in the comments and I'll be more than happy to answer those or to create another 10-minute masterclass for you. Make sure that you subscribe. Be happy to see you here and you'll get all the videos as soon as they arrive. I will see you in the next 10-minute masterclass. Take care.